it wasn't always in the back of my mind to play Obi-Wan Kenobi again. I think if you'd asked me after we finished episode 3, you know, when we shot it in 2003, if I would do it again, I would probably most definitely have said no. Just because the films were so difficult to make. The technology was... George was like pushing into the... He was pioneering digital cameras and visual effects to the point where, you know, he wanted to exercise that as much as he could, which meant he was creating more and more of the backgrounds in post-production, which meant for us, we were working more and more on just blue screens, blue set stages, green stages. There was just nothing, you know, my memory of episode 2 and 3 is really vague because there was nothing there. You know, I spent most of episode 2 running around on my own, where I discovered the clone armies and being built and stuff with these tall aliens, and I just spent weeks walking around on a blue stage speaking to a tennis ball on a stick. And it's really hard work. It's not really anything like what I'd been doing to that point or since, I guess. So it was really hard work, and also they weren't received very well when they came out. So I think if you'd asked me then, I would have said no. I've done my part with the Star, and I was really happy to be part of the Star Wars world and its legend. I really mean that. I was very privileged to be able to do that and have this link between me and such a great actor as Alec Guinness. Then I guess what happened was I kept getting asked in interviews, would I do it again? Would I do it again? And there was a period of time where every interview I did ended with the same 2 questions. Would you do the sequel to Trainspotting? And would you play Obi-Wan Kenobi again? And I started thinking about it, and I started thinking, well, there must be actually a good story to tell between episode 3 and 4. And I also started feeling this warmth for the films that we made from the people we made them for. The young people who loved the films when they came out. We didn't really hear their voice at the time, you know, because there was no social media or anything. We just heard the critics' voice, and the critics were pretty negative about them. But the warmth that I've realized there is for those original films started to make its way to me, and I felt good about it. And I thought, well, actually, as an acting challenge to play the young Alec Guinness again, but not quite so young this time, would be interesting, and in a very different place, you know, to the character to be in a very different, broken, faithless place would be a kind of cool exercise.
Yeah, I mean, it's just such a thrill to get to come back after all this time and do more with this character. Excuse me. That means so much to me. You know, I spent a good 4 to 5 years of my life with this character, and he's, you know, come to define my life in so many ways. So it's just been a great opportunity.
My reaction when I got the part was pure shock and awe. I wasn't even able to get any other words out but, okay, cool, just on a Zoom with Deborah Chow. I actually thought I would be auditioning again, but yeah, I was super overwhelmed too. Like, I know how large Star Wars is and how much it means to so many people, and so coveted, exactly. So, yeah.
One of the things I was the most excited about to do with the series, and to have the opportunity to do, is to tell a more character-driven series. And I loved the idea of doing a limited series because it's such an interesting format. So I was very grateful for this opportunity, and also just to get to work with these incredibly iconic characters again. I really don't think I could have honestly done Kenobi if I hadn't done Mandalorian first. And it was for a number of reasons. One was just on the practical side of just, you know, having the opportunity to work with everything and get to know the galaxy, because it can be quite a challenging galaxy sometimes to work in. And then also to have, you know, the tutelage and work under Dave and John, and to really sort of get the essence and the feel of Star Wars. And then the other thing is the technology, is that, you know, we used the same technology that we did on Mandalorian, which is stagecraft. And I was really excited actually to get to continue working with it and to really design a show that was designed for stagecraft.
Well, at the beginning of the series, I guess it's about 10 years. They're saying 10 years. I think it's less than that. Let's say 8 to 10 years after the end of episode 3. So the Jedi Order have all been destroyed, and those who haven't been killed have gone into hiding. They're not able to communicate with each other because if they use the Force, they feel that they'll draw attention to themselves, and they know that the Jedis are being hunted down to be eliminated. That's the idea. So Obi-Wan Kenobi's living on Tatooine, where we've seen him deliver the baby Luke Skywalker to Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru at the end of episode 3. And he's there trying to live a normal life, but a very solitary life. He's lonely, and the only responsibility he has left from his old life as a Jedi is to keep an eye over Luke Skywalker, which he does from a distance. Uncle Owen's made it very clear that he doesn't want him around, and it feels like he might draw attention to the child, to Luke, and therefore put him in danger. And so Obi-Wan's treading this delicate path of wanting to feel responsible for to keep an eye out for his safety, but at the same time not drawing attention to him.
Ooh, without giving away anything, just a great story, you know. First time I read the scripts, I was just blown away. I think they really sort of stayed true to what makes Star Wars great, and it's just an exciting story. You know, what's going on with the Obi-Wan Kenobi character, and of course Darth Vader. I think fans will be in for a real treat. I think it just goes back to the stories, you know. And sort of how George Lucas originally sort of conceived them. You know, it laid the foundation for these new storytellers to come in and tell their own stories in the Star Wars universe, and I think it's just really exciting, and I've really enjoyed everything that they've been up to. You know, so it's great to be back.
So a little about Reva. She is dangerous, deadly, fierce. She's a Jedi hunter, an Inquisitor, one of 4 total, all subordinates of Darth Vader, and they all have their own ways of doing things. And she is serious about her job, and she'll do whatever she has to get the job done.
And how did it feel to put on that costume for the first time? Did you feel empowered as Reva?
I did. Actually, the costume does a lot of work for you. So putting on the costume for the first time, you know, it just makes you stand a certain way. And also, I found myself being really, misty at it. I was like, wow, I'm wearing a cape. It's crazy.
The Inquisitors were, you know, obviously primarily developed in Dave Filoni's Rebels in the animated series, and it was something that we were quite excited to bring into live action, and also for this point in the timeline, they make perfect sense, you know, for the storyline. So, you know, for us, we are 10 years after Revenge of the Sith, so it's a time period in which the Inquisitors have been out there hunting and trying to track down any remaining Jedi, and, you know, obviously we're telling a story about one of the most iconic Jedis in hiding, so it felt a very natural fit to have them be part of the story.
It was great to have so much time. It was when we started talking about making Obi-Wan Kenobi, it was going to be a movie, and that was going to be cool. But we have now 6 hours in which to tell this story, and it makes. I don't know. I really liked it. I didn't feel like it was a lesser thing than a movie. I think those days are gone, aren't they? Really, the TV show just gives us longer to explore Obi-Wan's. I always thought what was interesting was to tell a story about a man who's lost his faith, and how does he get it back? How does he get that back? And that's what we had this 6-hour span to do, and it's very satisfying. Also, I have to say, the whole experience was amazing because I got to work with Deborah Chow, who I really, really respect as a director. And because she was able to direct all of the episodes, it was like making a 6-hour-long movie. That's for all of us, that's what it felt like.
The tone that we were going for, I would say is probably closest in many ways to kind of sort of almost more like one of the poetic westerns, where, you know, if Mandalorian was more sort of a classic western, for me, I was thinking of things like The Proposition or Assassination of Jesse James, where, you know, you do have the tropes of the genre, but there's a very strong emotional core and a very strong character side to the journey.
How would you describe the visual style and working with director of photography, Chung-Hoon Chung?
I truly loved working with Chung-Hoon, and he was such a great partner throughout this. You know, and I think with the visual style, you know, the reference for me with Star Wars is always going back to Westerns and samurai films, and there's such a strong correlation, particularly with samurai films, so I always look back at Kurosawa quite a lot. And I think one of the things I love about that is that there's such a strength and a simplicity to the storytelling, and it's largely visual. And I think Star Wars always feels like it really benefits in that mode of storytelling. And then I think another thing that we were really trying to do is, you know, when you go to a new planet, such as Daiyu or somewhere like that, you really have an opportunity visually to create a new world and to have a different style even in that planet. So that's something that Chung-Hoon and I were really trying to do throughout the series.
Deborah Chow, our director, was really great about inviting me into the process of working on and developing who Reva would be. I think it would have been very easy for her to be like, yeah, I want to hear your thoughts, but like, shh, you know, but she really cared about what I cared about. And so, you know, step by step and piece by piece is how Reva got her braids, and sort of, you know, just the way in which we did certain things that people will see later in the series. And I'm actually really grateful for Deborah for being a safe place on this.
And speaking of Deborah, what kind of set did she have, and how is it working with her and the crew?
You know, I always say that, you know, the way a set works and feels is a top-down situation, and she leads gracefully, free of ego, and very happy to be there. And she spends so much time, you know what I mean, leading by example around the clock. Even now, as we get closer to it, there are things, you know, that she still has to be in on along the way. And she always shows up. She always shows up her best self, willing to give, and you just want to rise and meet her where she is all the time.
Both Ewan and Hayden were awesome, honestly, and they were such a pivotal component of this, in large part because not only are they amazing actors and great human beings, but also because they just know these characters inside and out. You know, not only did they play them in the prequels, but they've also lived with these characters in their lives since then. So they're such a great guiding touchstone for me to always, their instincts are always correct. So whenever we had a question or wherever there was a line of dialogue that we weren't sure about, we'd go to the actors, and, you know, they always had the right instincts because they just know those characters so well.
Working with Ewan McGregor is like super wild. And he's just so gracious and a wonderful human being. He really leads by example as well. He's been doing this a long time, and we only get to do what we're doing today because of the foundation that he laid nearly 20 years ago. And so to be in Star Wars, but to be in Star Wars with Ewan is more than I could have asked for.
The people I got to work with, that was probably the most enjoyable, you know, working with Ewan and Deborah and Moses. It was just a great group of people. The most challenging aspect, the Darth Vader costume's a real beast, you know. It's very heavy, very hot in there, but you know, a real joy to get to wear it as well, and an honor.
Our training was very involved. We had 4 months of training before we ever even touched set. And that was like 5 days a week of like typical workouts, running and strength training. And then 3 days a week on top of that, we'd have Jedi school, which was all about core strength and stunt work and hanging in wires and flipping and how to flip into a power pose and all those kinds of things. And it was really involved, but I think the thing that I appreciated most about it was that we all did it together, though we might have been in separate, you know, pods in the room working on different things. It's nice to look over and see someone who's going just as hard as you are. And so you definitely don't want to be the weak link in the chain.
Yeah, over the last 10, well, 6, 7 years, I guess, I've really started feeling the warmth there is for the prequels. When they came out, there was no social media, there was no avenue to hear the audience's reactions, really, and I've never really gone out to look for that. I've never done that with any of my work, so all I heard was the sort of negative critic's voice, which, they decided not to like them very much. I always thought that we did something very interesting. I thought George was pioneering some amazing technology for its time, and therefore, changing cinema, really, which is what he's done with ILM and some of the other the technology that he's pioneered. Digital cameras, we were the first ones to use in episode 2. But that, he was also trying to do something different. He wasn't trying to remake the original 70s movies. That he was not doing that. That he was trying, and I think the critics just didn't really see it, and they didn't like them. So over the last wee while, now that that young generation who we made the films for have become people that come up to me and say, let me know what they meant to them, and that our prequels were their Star Wars films, in the same way that the Alec Guinness, Carrie Fisher movies were mine. It's really been a lovely experience. It's nice to feel that warmth for them.